So Florida State coming in this, I mean, I think like Jason had said, there's an upswing where Florida State's on kind of an upward trend, and then the Gators are going through what they're going through. And, you lose the head coach and everything. But I want to go quarterback wise, and there's been a big conversation in Gainesville. Anthony Richardson or Emory Jones. And I want to ask you, what's going on with Anthony there? What should Florida State expect? Because right now the defensive line on FSU side is just getting after the quarterback, and Jermaine Johnson and Keir Thomas are lighting it up. And so as someone, they're covering the team and everything, I'd want to know, I'm sure the coaches want to know at FSU, who to expect at quarterback this upcoming weekend. And will there be two quarterbacks potentially playing?
Yeah, Florida's offensive line got blown up by Missouri last week. So the names you mentioned for Florida State should be licking their chops right now after the performance Florida put on the field last week up front on the offensive line. So, yeah, of course, but, that affects quarterback play. There was some word yesterday. Emory Jones may have got banged up a little bit at practice yesterday, so we'll see how serious that is. We'll see if that anything comes out of practice today as far as that goes. Didn't see Anthony Richardson at all last week. Kind of surprised there, but Dan Mullen said after the game that he got banged up in practice last week. So he's been nursing a knee injury ever since the dancing the night before the South Carolina game in the team hotel there. So, and then the week before that, he had the concussion suffered versus Georgia. So a little bit of injury prone there for Anthony Richardson there. So we'll see how far along he is as well. If Emory Jones is banged up, as I heard yesterday in practice, maybe a little bit, and then now Anthony Richardson as well, will Florida even have two quarterbacks at 100% going into this matchup? I expect Richardson will be healthy enough to play as long as nothing else happens, and we'll see. Hopefully, we hear today on Tuesday how serious I heard an injury to Emory Jones was on Monday.
Something significant.
But either way, what on play, Anthony Richardson, even though we haven't seen a whole lot of it, still the most explosive. I think you go back probably if you want to see his capability, his potential, you probably go and look at the second half of the LSU game. That's the best he's played for over an extended period of time this year. Yeah, he had his moments versus FAU and USF earlier in the year, but it was that extended second half performance versus LSU where he brought Florida back, and Florida almost pulled the game out because of his play in the second half. So if any Seminoles fans want to get a better look at what Anthony Richardson can bring to the table, you watch that second half of the LSU game.
I think a lot of Florida
the Georgia
State
game is
fans,
not a good example, by the way.
it's a perfect one just to go off of, right?
As we say, that's if you want to see how bad it can get, you start right there as well. But him making his first start versus that defense, that was just set up to fail from the get-go.
Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was going to ask you a question on the flip side of the ball, and Logan talks about the quarterbacks. On the defensive side of the ball, this has not been a Florida defense that we are used to seeing in the past years. And obviously they got rid of Todd Grantham. Was he the source of the problem, or what do you think has been the biggest issue on that defensive side of the ball this season for Florida?
Yeah, I do think it was Todd Grantham. We date that back to last year and now, of course, to this year as well. So about a little over a season and a half of just very subpar play from Todd Grantham and his defense. And a lot of tweeners on that defense for the way they've recruited. They've recruited stars well on the defense, but a lot of Florida lacks at linebacker. They don't really have a true linebacker out there. Ventrell Miller got hurt in the very first game this year at middle linebacker, so Florida didn't have their true stud. Well, I won't say stud, but their tough guy there in the middle. You have Mamu Diabate, who was recruited as more of an outside linebacker, defensive end type, who they shoved the linebacker last year. Made some strides this year, but still not a true linebacker. Tyron Hopper's really come along, a young linebacker. They've gotten him more involved this year, probably coming off his best game of his career from last week versus Missouri. And then Jeremiah Moon was injured, so Florida's down even more depth at linebacker during the season. So Derek Wingo, another young name that we might see now because of the injuries that have come along through the season for Florida. So it really, Florida up front is just, they're not as strong as they used to be. They get run on time and time again. You saw that stretch of LSU, Georgia, and South Carolina where Florida just got ran on 3 straight games, got pushed around, a lack of physicality for this defense. But it really just started with Todd Grantham. He just never adjusted. His defense just does not work. Guys out of position at the snap of the ball, not lined up, a lot of confusion on the defense. That was for almost 2 years now. It was definitely time to move on from Todd Grantham because he could just never really figure it out.
Who is the one player on each side of the ball for Florida State fans, and we'll talk more about the Florida State side, but who's the one player on both offense and defense for Florida that's kind of flying under the radar, or somebody to watch for entering this game? The Florida State fans should watch for entering this game.
I'd say even if they're not, Florida should play it this way anyway. But if the quarterbacks are banged up just a little bit, Florida needs to start running the ball with Dameon Pierce more anyway. I don't think he's had a game this year where he's had double-digit carries, and he's by far Florida's most consistent running back. For whatever reason, they do this running back by committee, and it ticks fans off for whatever reason. Dameon Pierce has been the most consistent force at running back, always moving forward, averaging, I want to say maybe 6-7 yards. I have to go back and look at it. Haven't got my stats this year because as soon as the Missouri game happened, of course, we're talking about coaches. So I haven't really went back and looked at stats so much of where everything stands like that. But Dameon Pierce has been on a tear lately when he's gotten the ball. He just doesn't get the ball enough. So I'll pinpoint him on offense. And then on defense, we'll go probably Zach Carter up front. He's coming off one of his best games as well. The whole defensive front probably played their best game of the season last week versus Missouri. We're really worried about that Missouri run game and what they've done lately, holding Tyler Beatty to well under that 200-yard mark that everybody was looking for him to pass this week, especially against a Florida defensive front that has struggled a lot this year. So they're coming off one of their better performances of the year, but led by Zach Carter, super senior there for Florida. He's been there forever and has really made the most of his senior season so far. A lot of tackles behind the line of scrimmage. That's what he lived. He lived in the backfield last week versus Missouri. We'll see if he can continue that in his last game of his Gator career.